Hello everyone, today I wanted to showcase some ideas I had for stratagems that could be added to Helldivers 2. So first, I want to show some ideas I had for air defense stratagems, because currently, I feel like our selection is a little limited. And sure, maybe there's the airburst rocket launcher coming down the pike, but I just feel like it isn't quite enough, you know? Then I want to showcase some ground defense stratagems, just because I feel like more of those would be cool, and some more options in that department would be good. Most of them are going to be emplacements, but there's a couple of other kinds. And I think out of all the things we're going to talk about, I think the big gun is my favorite. It probably won't be the most balanced suggestion, but it's definitely the coolest. So to start us off, we've got the rocket anti-air turret. It's a turret with 4 guided missiles designed to shoot down things like dropships or gunships. It wouldn't be able to engage ground targets, and it should cover a pretty wide area as well. Additionally, it could have an airburst version for fighting shriekers, where it will target a large group of shriekers and fly into the middle of them before detonating, killing all of them. This variation would be far less useful for things like dropships or gunships. Alright, next up we've got the gun-based anti-air turret. Its main purpose is to shoot down shriekers and other similar swarming type flying enemies. It still would be able to shoot down dropships and gunships, but it wouldn't be able to shoot down gunships before it's able to deploy its troops. Additionally, it could also try to shoot down incoming mortar shells from automaton mortar emplacements, which I feel like would give it a pretty strong niche. It would have a lot of ammo and a very, very high rate of fire. But honestly, it's not super complicated, so there isn't really a lot to say about it, you know? So, moving on to the drone anti-air station. It's not really a traditional turret, it's more of a emplacement version of the guard dog backpack, where a fast and nimble drone with a small gun will fly around a wide area, shredding shriekers, and if there are none, attacking weak ground targets with some efficacy. But if the little radar station is destroyed, it crashes into the ground quickly. This would probably be very useful in terminated missions, or in certain contexts of automaton missions. This would probably be a strong offensive and defensive tool. The main constraint is that it would run out of ammo eventually, and you could potentially have other versions of this with different armaments, things like flamethrowers or bombs that it drops, all sorts of things it could be, but that could potentially be a rabbit hole of its own. So let's keep going to our first ground defense stratagem, which is the flame turret. This one's pretty simple. It's just a flamethrower turret. This would cook bugs like they were creme brulee. Not so good for bots though. It would probably also kill your team so much, it wouldn't even be funny. It would also be shorter range. It probably wouldn't have a ton of use against larger enemies, but on the flip side, it's built for area denial, and it would melt swarms of lighter bugs. I think that's everything on that. So let's talk about our one and only support weapon for this video, the heavy monopod machine gun, which in terms of DPS is in between the heavy machine gun and the heavy machine gun emplacement. It would carry 1 to 2 magazines, and you would mostly want to use it for clearing crowds or holding a line against large groups or high HP, low armor enemies. However, its recoil is so intense you need to set it down on its monopod to use it, so you can't run and gun. I think this would be a great defensive weapon, especially on higher difficulty terminated missions, because you get the mobility of the heavy machine gun, but the power of the heavy machine gun emplacement. I'll probably have a whole other video dedicated to ideas for support weapons, but I figured this idea was close enough to the upcoming ideas that I figured it would fit in. So, next to the grenade launcher emplacement. By the way, the rest of these ideas are emplacements. It's like the heavy machine gun emplacement, except it's a grenade launcher. It's extremely high rate of fire. It will absolutely eviscerate anything you shoot at. And if you're skilled enough, you can use it like a mortar, like the regular grenade launcher. The main downside compared to the heavy machine gun emplacement is it's got less armor penetration than it, and because of its high rate of fire and large size of ammo, you'll will burn through the ammo fast, so you'll want to use it conservatively. That's all for this one. Next is the laser cannon emplacement. Its main feature is that it has 2 firing modes: continuous and pulsed. Continuous is like the scythe, while pulsed is like the sickle. Pulsed has a high armor penetration factor, but it builds up heat faster, while continuous has higher damage per second and builds up heat slower, as well as we set the ground on fire where it hits, akin to the orbital laser. The main reason you'd want it is because it has unlimited ammo and its flexibility is great for big and small targets, but you do have to keep an eye on your heat. For this one, I think you could really go crazy with the visual effects, and I think this one could look really, really cool, and could definitely be a great side grade of the machine gun emplacement. So, next up, we've got the rocket launcher emplacement. What this thing is for is high damage and high armor penetration. It'll punch right through a charger's head armor. It's got decent AoE as well, so it's not totally useless against groups, but it's not ideal, especially considering its limited ammo, about 28 shots. So it's really meant for taking out large to mid-size enemies that are coming at you. This would be good for bots or terminids. But that's really all there is to say. So moving on to the flamethrower emplacement. It's got a lot of the same strengths and weaknesses as the flamethrower turret because, flamethrowers don't really change much whether they're automated or man-powered, but I'll go over it anyway. Good for bugs, bad for bots. You can set the ground on fire, so it's good for area denial. Its range is better than the support weapon flamethrower, but it's still not that long, Still very easy to set friendlies on fire, and the damage over time is also good. Not super complicated. So, moving on to my favorite idea, the big gun emplacement. It's just a giant gun on a turret. It's pretty much a miniaturized howitzer. It fires these massively oversized shells. With a good amount of AoE and a ton of armor penetration and on-target damage, this thing will shred things like tanks or chargers, and this thing will one-shot a Bile Titan if you shoot it in the head. But there are some problems. It's only got 9 shots, and it does turn pretty slowly. But I just feel like the punchiness would be really helpful on those door defense missions, especially if you've got things like chargers or Bile Titans or tanks. I feel like these could really help hold the line. But it would definitely be a specialized stratagem. But with that, I bid you all adieu.